Two, one. All right. We are live with Jessica Tapia. She is my Instagram friend and fierce teacher that actually reached out to me. Well, no, I had a friend reach out to me that we have a mutual friend,
Yep.
and she reached out to me to contact you and help you share your story about what happened to you as a public school teacher in California. And I can very much relate to her because I was a public school teacher in California. But what happened to her is what is worse than what happened to me because I resigned before everything went super crazy. But Jessica was fired for, well, I'll let you explain. Just kind of recap and then we'll go into the details of what happened to you.
Okay, definitely. Yeah. So, a quick recap. The way I try to condense my story is essentially students sought me out via my social media and from my platform found my beliefs, my opinions, my conservative Christian views on life and the world, and did not like what they found, sent several posts into my school district. And essentially, in the end, there's tons of details in between, but essentially, in the end, the district sided with the students and their feelings. And after attempting to accommodate my religious beliefs on the directives they gave me that I voiced, I am not complying with, decided we can't accommodate your religious beliefs and we're releasing you from employment. January.
So this is Jessica Tapia. For those of you that are just joining, she is a teacher that was recently fired. This was in January, right?
Yep.
She was recently fired for, well, students went after her. They found your Instagram account. Was it your Instagram?
Yep.
And what was the post that they were upset about?
Yes. So I definitely saw one initial post seem to start receiving the really rude, awful comments first. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a video I made. I was shopping in Kohl's and I was recording all of the pride clothing that I was seeing. And specifically, my focus in the video and in my caption was on the clothing that's now being made for toddlers and babies that says, pride on it.
Mm-hmm.
This is so wrong. These kids do not have a brain developed enough to understand what this even means. And we're making clothes and putting it on a 12-month-old. And, just voiced my opinion on what I was seeing in a store. They found that one first. That seemed to really start it all, and started commenting really awful things on it. That's when I was like, whoa, because I had never really received awful comments on my page before until then. After clicking on their profiles, saw clearly, okay, these are students, I recognize them. And really they went from there, just kind of on a hunt on my page. And it's kind of scary.
Were
Specifically,
these your actual students in your class, or were they just students general in the school?
to be honest, I couldn't tell you because I don't know who all was involved, how many were
Mm-hmm.
involved. On the paperwork I received from the district with student initials, there were about 7, I want to say, that gave them quotes about how they felt about my posts. The thing is, I had just moved to the high school, and it's the high school that is fed from the middle school that I had just worked 4 years at. So if you think of it that way, basically, I pretty much knew the vast majority of students on the high school campus, because if I didn't know them from that year, first year I was teaching there, I probably had seen them at the middle school in the past. So everyone was pretty, recognizable to me. Most of the students knew who I was from being a PE teacher at the feeder middle school. So I don't know if they were like in my class that year or what, but they knew me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was crazy to me is they went specifically to a highlight on my Instagram page that's called Jesus. And they screenshot several scriptures that I posted, quotes just about, my faith, and sent those into the district. I mean, I have the packet not with me or I would show you, but the packet from the district that they sat in front of me with allegations. And at the back of it, it says exhibits. And the exhibits are literally screenshots of my posts my views, my faith, my religion. And I'm just looking at them and looking back up at these district personnel like, and what? And what? I can't post a Bible verse?
Wow. Wow. Okay, so to recap, so this is Jessica Tapia. She is a former public school teacher. I now say former public school teacher as well. And it's kind of heartbreaking because it was our career. We worked so hard. They put California teachers through hell
Yes.
to become a teacher. We have some of the strictest requirements for becoming a teacher in California, yet the teachers still suck there. But I digress on that. But so she is a PE teacher. You're tenured at this point, right?
Yeah.
And you had students look at your social media, find some posts that they didn't like, go and complain like babies to the principal. And then what happened next? Because you ended up being fired because of this.
Yes. So I was blocking and deleting as I was getting these, awful comments on my posts that students were in disagreement with. And after deleting the comment, I had the same page profile come back and say, too late. I've already sent this into the district. So I'm
Oh, these
okay.
kids. Okay.
I'm thinking, okay, if this person's serious, like I'm getting called up, but at the same time I'm thinking like they don't really like have the nerve, right? Like, do they? But next morning, well, it was about midday. I was maybe in third or fourth period. A principal came into my class, and this is like 2 days before summer break. This is the end of May last year. And she just says, I need to take you up to the office. And so I'm walking with her and I'm, asking, what is this regarding? She's not answering any of my questions and walks me into a room. And the assistant superintendent is in the room. And he says, there's something that's been brought to our attention of regarding your social media. We need to place you on paid administrative leave while we investigate this. And we need you to leave right now for your safety.
Whoa.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So basically, and this is what I've been seeing with this new generation of children that are coming up, the left-leaning Gen Z population of kids right now, is that they're super radical. And they have been brainwashed into thinking that there's all this violence against the LGBTQ community. So when you post a video where you're like, why is there rainbow clothes and pride clothes for 12-month-olds? Like, first of all, why do you need your child to advertise your sexuality? I think that's just weird. I mean, it's your sexuality. Keep that in the bedroom, okay? But secondly, they've been telling these young people, these children, that there's all this violence against trans and against LGBTQ, and they're starting to say that just doing a post like yours is an act of violence. And these kids are feeling impressed because of your social media, and that's what they told the principal. And it was basically a witch hunt after you. And then the principal agreed with them, right?
Yep.
And called you into the office over your private social media. As a public school teacher, you're allowed to have a private life. You're allowed to have your views on social media. It's this free country. Like, we had a comment that said, it's a free country. This is a violation of free speech. Yet you're being punished because of this. And now you ended up being fired. So you had the principal say, your safety, because these kids were probably really angry and upset and whipping up all of this emotion against you. And then you came back. What happened the next school year after these kids reported your social media?
So they pulled me into the office to let me know, what had been reported to them. This again was 2 days before summer break. So for me, it was like, okay, my summer break is starting early. Summer goes by. I don't hear anything. I'm honestly thinking, I think pretty clearly and level-headed about this. They're just letting this blow over. I'm going to start the next school year. But 2 weeks before the school year is going to start, I still haven't heard anything. I'm trying, as a teacher, I'm like, do I get in the headspace of like going back? And so I reach out to the district and I'm like, am I good to go? The next school year is coming up here. And they responded, no, we've been investigating as we said we would, and we need you to come in for a meeting and give your side of the story. And I'm already thinking like, what side of the story? I was going along doing my job as I have the last 6 years, of being a teacher. Students came and like started this whole thing. Like, my side of the story, I guess, is just my social media, apparently, that they've decided to make an issue. Like, I don't, but okay, like, I'll be in. And so I go in and I have 2 union representatives with me, and that's a whole other probably live, to be honest, regarding the union. But and I think we were all blindsided. I go into this first official meeting with the school district, and they set a pack of papers in front of me, and there's 13 allegations that have been made against me. And I'm like freaking out because I've never had an allegation made against me. I've had a very clean, good teaching record. I have phenomenal reference letters and evaluations. Like, this is bizarre. I actually was a student at that school district, straight A student, scholar athlete, like all the things. This is totally not me. And I'm already thinking, what could these allegations even be? I start reading them, and it sounds kind of weird, but as I start going through them in that meeting, I almost start to like calm down a little bit because I see exactly what's happening. Students found my beliefs. They found out about me and used my beliefs that they're in disagreement with to claim I do my job in a certain way. For example, and some of these allegations were not legit allegations. Some of them were false. One of them was that I broadcast sermons to my classes. bizarre. And my union rep was like, does she roll out speakers? Like, what do you mean? And so I told the district, I'm like, the only way I can think of someone making this sort of claim is I'm a PE teacher. On Mondays, we go to the track. The students have, a running activity on the track. That's the one day I let them listen to music or a podcast of their choosing. I walk with them. I do the same thing, but I don't, have headphones in because I need to be able to hear them as well. So I put something on my phone just loud enough in my pocket for me to hear as I walk around with them and keep an eye on them. So yeah, if a student walked by me, they might have heard hallelujah, Jesus is Lord. I'm not like, gather around class, I need you to hear this, sermon from last Sunday. And so it was really, really bizarre, a lot of these allegations. And I responded to all of them vocally in the meeting. And they said, okay, we're going to continue to look at this and decide what to do next. I was off on leave for another couple months. They called me back in for a second meeting. And this is where everything really kind of came to a halt for me, because in this meeting, one, they wrote me up for misconduct. And again, it's like, what did I do on the job? What did I do to a student? And I got written up for misconduct. And then I was told, you're barely being allowed to come back. What you've done is so serious. So you're lucky you still have your job. 1, 2, we're giving you these directives you need to follow. And if you mess up again, you're done. And I'm just sitting there like,
okay. So to recap, you had students go after your social media. Then the principal basically put 13 allegations in front of you. Some of these were being made up by the students. This is, again, nothing that you actually did in front of your class or with your class. They were just these allegations that they assumed from just seeing your social media posts. And then the principal barely lets you have your job, but you have to follow directives. And what were those directives that they wanted you to follow?
Yes. So that's when I was really hit with like, am I not supposed to be in public education anymore? Because I'm reading these directives and I'm like, this is not in line with my beliefs. And I'm going to be a hypocrite if I go back to work following these. And the first one was that I had to call students by their preferred gender or pronoun.
Did you have any they, them students yet? Any non-binary?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So this is just for future.
Yes.
You don't even have these students yet. Okay.
Hypothetical. I was fired on how I would hypothetically handle situations.
America, I just want to stop you right now because this is what's happening right now is so scary. Because they want to make an example out of you and tell all the Christian teachers across the nation, or just sane teachers. This isn't even just necessarily a Christian thing. Hiding gender identity for parents. That should be a moral. Everybody shouldn't do that, right? All teachers should not do that. Using preferred pronouns, where these kids are changing their pronouns every month. They don't even know, they're still developing. And hiding that also from parents. Yet they wanted to make an example out of you. The kids were probably celebrating when they found out that you weren't coming back on campus. What is that telling them that they can do to the next Christian teacher that comes on campus and gets a job at that school? These kids are going to continually witch hunt these teachers because they have power now to get you fired for hypotheticals. And this is just, this is so bad, America, because when we were public school teachers, I don't know if you witnessed it, but I saw a lot of teachers do some horrible things to kids, and they did not get fired. There was a 5th grade teacher letting girls sit on his lap, didn't get fired. There was a substitute teacher who was looking at pornography while the kids were in the classroom and they could see the pornography. He didn't get fired, yet you're getting fired for hypotheticals. So okay, at this point, they have a misconduct. They have a list of demands. These are a list of demands that if you don't meet these demands, you will not have your job. Your job is on the line. And you said one of them was to address them by their pronouns. Was there anything else that was alarming?
When I read that one, they also vocally, which I thought was interesting that it wasn't in writing at that time, but they vocally said, you also need to withhold that from parents if a student ever does come to you with a preference. And I sat back and I looked them in the eye and I said, are you asking me to lie to parents? And the assistant superintendent said, yes, it's the law and it's for student privacy. And I said, I can't believe this. And so, so this plan of assistance and directives is exactly what it was called. And there were several directives. Another one was that I had to completely refrain from talking to students about God or the Bible. And I had told the district, if a student comes to me with a question, students are pretty smart. They can gauge your character. They can pretty much gauge your beliefs without your social media. And so I have in the past, all my years of teaching, have students figure me out, and come up to me with a question. And I learned in college how to, legally and from strictly an educational standpoint, answer a question if a student had a question about, my faith or God or the Bible. And so I would always answer that from an educational standpoint if they came to me with a question. And so I wasn't having that directive either. That to me was infringing on, my freedom of speech and being able to be a teacher and answer a question from an educational standpoint, of course, not coercing students. And so that was another one that I was like, mm-mm. And so pretty much at that point in that second meeting, I had, 3 issues: the calling students by preferred gender pronoun, withholding information from parents, and then refraining from ever speaking to a student again about God or the Bible, even if they're coming to me with the question. And so they go they say 45 days, you're going to go back. You have 45 days to show change of behavior. And I'm just like, the more they talk, I'm just like, confused because I have no behavior to change. I've been the same teacher. I mean, I'd like to say I've improved each year of teaching, but like I have nothing to change about how I do my job. Again, let's focus on how this even began. This is all about students coming onto my social media and being upset about what my values are.
And this is really just, I will say, because as a public school, I started teaching at 23. That was 2005 or a while back. And this is really just the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. The kids, this new generation, it's really been really the last 5 years, because we could teach our jobs and not be bothered with this crazy gender identity stuff and this witch hunt 5 years ago. But what's happening now is completely different. And I think a lot of it has to do with the mainstream media. And the other thing that I'm really concerned about for you with all of this is the fact that the unions, what was that? I mean, I think we should do a whole other, in fact, first of all, I want to do some housekeeping and say, first of all, there's been 150 people watching this live this whole time. Awesome. And your story is so important. I'm getting comments. People are like, this is eye-opening, but parents' rights have been attacked, especially in California and blue states, for a while now. So for example, a 14-year-old can get an abortion in California right now without parents' permission, facilitated by the school. So the school counselors can take a child to go get an abortion at Planned Parenthood and not tell the parents. And now they're starting to do this with gender identity. That is actually on the books as a school policy in a lot of these public schools. Is they're saying teachers do not use the new pronoun and new name of the child that they've changed at school because they haven't come out to their parents yet. So they are asking teachers to hide gender identity. And that actually happened in my district where I was at. There was a teacher that called home with the new name and pronoun, and the parent was like, "Who is this? I don't know who you're talking about." And the parent was upset because they were hiding the gender. The parent was like, "Who are you talking about? That's not my son. I have a daughter." And then we were told after that incident, oh, don't tell the parent. Don't tell the parent. In fact, make sure that you ask your trans kids if the parents know yet. You need to go off the kids' direction on whether or not the parents should know about their gender identity change. And these are 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and you are being asked to lie to parents as a teacher. You are being asked to lie to parents about a gender identity change that is being fostered and promoted and praised on these school campuses. Now, I have a question for you. What were the other teachers like on your campus? Was there anyone that showed support for you, or were they all on board with all this gender identity and hiding it from the parents' garbage that's happening?
Yeah, that's a question I get a lot, and it's hard to explain because one, that was my first year at that high school campus.
Okay.
Was still kind of getting to know all of the staff. I had previously come from the feeder middle school. I was there at that school for 4 years. So I was, still getting to know everyone. I was actually part of that school year where this happened. I was on maternity leave. So it was like a really brief school year already for me on a new campus. And then when this happened, it just happened and I was ripped off campus. So there was no like way for me to even like engage with the other teachers, see like what their thoughts and feelings were on it. And it's not like we had some sort of meeting or training around, inclusivity and, LGBTQ and transgender students. Really interesting. You're going to get a kick out of this one though. 2 weeks after they fired me, one day I got tons of messages and it was all the same thing. It was from about 7 to 10 teachers in my district with a screenshot of a training that they pushed out 2 weeks after firing me, how to make, LGBTQ and transgender students feel safe and included. And they were requiring all teachers to finish it by the end of this month. And so they all sent me that one day. This was a couple weeks ago. And they're, "Jess, what do we do? If we do this training, is that going to mean that we're, in line with this stuff? We don't want to do this." And they're coming to me for help. And actually, one of them ended up requesting a religious accommodation. And I let her know in my religious accommodation meeting, they didn't accommodate me and I was fired. So I'm just giving you a heads up. I think you should totally speak up and let them know, because she said in order to pass this training and get 100% on the quiz, she'd be lying about what she believed regarding this training. And so she requested a religious accommodation, went in for the meeting. They exempted her. And we all thought she was going to get fired and they exempted her. So it's really revealing a lot. Like we think my district's pretty much backpedaling right now, pushing out these trainings, after they fired me for these directives I didn't even know about until, this whole thing started. And now they're giving out religious accommodations, but didn't accommodate me. So it's really interesting.
So here's the reality of what's going on in our public schools in our nation is you're right. They are coming up with policies at the seat of their pants on how to deal with all of these trans students, because we are having more kids identify as trans. In fact, it has gone up 1,000% in the last 10 years of kids identifying as trans. So they're having to come up with these school policies because this is a social contagion right now. I remember when there was one trans student in the whole school, and that was probably what it was like for you in the 90s. And it was usually a boy transitioning to a girl. And we all were like, all right, there's this fruitcake on campus and whatever, and now it's every class has a trans student. And there's also multiple identities. It's not just trans, it's non-binary, it's gender fluid, it's kids that want to be referred to as they, them. And there was a Project Veritas video that came out of a school superintendent saying since the pandemic, they've seen an increase in trans students. And there's a lot of reasons for this. I think part of it is TikTok. You can go viral for sharing your transition journey, for being non-binary. There's whole accounts where their whole identity is sharing about being non-binary. So these districts are coming out with these policies, especially these left-leaning districts, to deal with this influx of trans students. And guess what? It goes after teachers like you, Jessica, teachers like me, teachers. And I've had a lot of teachers reach out to me about this. And what I tell them is to stand firm. And I think that you don't regret that, right? You don't regret standing firm, not caving. So where are you at now? So you got fired because you did not agree with this directives that they were wanting you to do. And then now what's been happening with you?
I'll recap a little bit the final meeting. So I actually went off after those directives. I was in turmoil. I had no idea what to do next. I actually almost resigned. I have on my computer half a resignation letter, but I felt God was like, no, that's not what I'm calling you to do. And I was really stressed out. And then he made it clear one day, you need to speak up. You need to just let them know you're ready to come back to work. Your stress leave has, spanned its time. You're mentally and emotionally good to go, but let them know, XYZ you will not be complying with. And so I emailed them, I let them know, and they said, okay, thank you for letting us know that. We're going to need to call you in for a religious accommodation meeting to see if and how we can accommodate your religious beliefs. So I go in, this is the third and final meeting. They question me up and down, left and right on my faith, on Christianity. Where do you go to church? How often do you go? Who's your pastor? What is it that you read or study? Why don't your beliefs allow you to lie to parents, to, call students by whatever they want to be called by? And on and on and on, rephrase the same question 78 times, trying to see if they can get me to change my answer on these directives. At the end of that meeting, they go, is there anything else we need to know that your faith won't allow you to do in your position? And I said, yeah, while we're at it, I need you to know now, I will not be allowing biological males into the female locker room. And they just go, well, we have a whole other issue then, because you have to. That would be discrimination. If you have a student who is saying that they're female, appears female, you need to let them in. And that was internally like, okay, this is definite. Like, I'm not going back. I'm not going back under these policies and these directives. But we'll see what happens. The ball is now in their court, And so a few days after that meeting, and I found out about that other directive, the locker room directive, which again was just like, all right, that's it. This is so corrupt. Few days after that meeting is when they emailed me and they said, we can't accommodate your religious beliefs and we're releasing you from employment. So that is that's how it ended.
And this is not just you, Jessica. There's other teachers that have had this happen to them, and they've been faced with this dilemma of, do I keep my job or do I cave? And you decided to not cave, and they decided to release you, which is your livelihood.
Yeah.
That's, the way you survive. That's the career you chose, was to be a PE teacher. And now you're having to scramble to make a living. Luckily you have a working husband, but this is, imagine a teacher who is a single parent and doesn't want to go along with this. And this is their only form of income. And now they're having to decide whether or not they're going to lose their livelihood or, cave to all this transgender madness and these bullies. So now, okay, so Jessica, actually, she went viral. You went viral sharing about your experience. And so what has happened since then?
You actually were the one who inspired me to make that first video that is still going viral today after, it's been going viral for, I want to say close to almost 2 months now. It's pretty close to hitting 1 million views. So yeah, I just made a video really specifically around that last directive because I felt like that was the most like, whoa, you are telling me that if I don't let biological males into the locker room, I'm discriminating. And I'm just like, my job is to protect these students. Like, this is setting up, students to be harmed, abused. This is setting me up to be sued, if a parent were to find out that this was happening. Like, this is nonsense. So I really shared with the world in a quick clip, like, I was just fired as a public school teacher for refusing to allow biological males into the female locker room. And I just said, how is this okay? Where do we draw the line? And where are the fired up mothers and fathers? And I let the world know, like, I'm seeking justice on this, and I'm going to be suing my school district. And yeah, that video has just took off, and it's still taking off. And I'm glad to see that it's informing people, because again, even myself as a teacher didn't know I was under these expectations. So of course parents don't know that teachers are expected to be lying to them, to call students by whatever it is they decided they are that day, and let a biological male into the locker room. And let's flip the coin on that. How does that look for male PE teachers? They're having to watch biological females potentially change in the locker room. I mean, what is that setting them up for? And it's just, I go back to, where is the line? And I asked my district that too. Where do we draw the line in all this? And, if they're not going to do it, then we, the people, have to do it, because it's
Absolutely.
going to get worse if we don't.
And I think we need to, I think a lot of people are waking up and pulling their kids from public schools, or they're they're leaving blue states, which is where this is the worst. But we also got to remember the people that can't do that. And I think that's important, is to keep fighting for the kids that are still having to be in our schools, because the reality is these kids that are questioning their gender and saying they're non-binary and gender fluid and so angry that they go after a teacher like you and get you fired, they're miserable children. They're really unhappy. And the reality is they're still just children. And even though we want to protect our own children from them, which is great, which was what we should do, because you have to remember that if they're willing to go after you as a teacher like this, what are they doing to their conservative and Christian peers? To other kids on campus that don't agree with their weird, I'm a furry or I'm a they, them. What do you have to say about that? Yeah.
Heard a story actually about a 13-year-old girl who was getting death threats. Is very clearly conservative, student at her school, and a group of LGBTQ students have been bullying her extremely, to an extreme state. Her mother actually had been requesting meetings with the principal. The principal would not meet with her. Finally, the mom, this story is crazy. I'm actually trying to get connected with the mom, but the mom finally just pulled her daughter from school because the principal wouldn't even meet with her, and take this matter seriously, this bullying and these death threats. And then, because she took her daughter from school to keep her safe, CPS ends up showing up to her house. It's just like corruption. I don't even want to think about happening in the world, but yeah, it's happening. Yeah, to students too.
Well, I want to open up to, we have now 180 people watching live. So thank you so much for hearing Jessica's story. You can find her. Where can they find you, Jessica?
Yes, I'm mostly active on my Instagram. I try to do a little bit on Facebook, but Instagram is where I keep everyone up to date. And we're going to be filing this case either later this week or next week. So I'm definitely going to keep everyone both. So yes, Instagram, my handle is Jess_Sayin. So it's JESS_SAYINNN. So yeah, I would love for you to follow me over there.
Oh, 2 N's?
Three
N's. Okay, I put it in wrong. Let me put it in the banner so that people can see it. I'm still new to this, guys, so please. So follow Jessica at JESS underscore.
S.
Just two S's?
Yes. And then
Say.
SAYINNN. Just
Okay, there we go. I'll scroll it. Let's see. Think I could do this? There we go. Woohoo! Okay, and then I've also had people ask if you have a GiveSendGo. Where can they find that GiveSendGo?
Yes, my best friend made one for me. I didn't even know what that was until she made one. So I guess it's kind of like a more
Alternative to GoFundMe, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe they don't take like a percentage of the which is great. So if you just go to GiveSendGo, there's a search bar. If you just put Jessica Tapia, you'll find my story and my page there. And I appreciate that so much.
Okay, Jessica Tapia. I'll try and find a link to that, and I'll put it in the comments of this video once it's posted.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right. So let's get to some questions. I had one start. I really like this one. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comments for her so we can do that. We probably have another 10 minutes or so. But curious, how do you approach forgiveness for those kids who came after you?
Yeah. Wow. I love that question because it reminds me of something that happened during this story of mine that played out. And actually, when I felt God telling me, you're not to resign, you are to, stand up and speak up to your district about where you stand with these directives. It was actually a divine appointment of a phone call that I had with a couple in Washington who I just met over social media. And they just asked if they could call me one day and see how they could help with my story. And I felt like my phone call with them really guided me into making the decision that I did. But something that they said that I loved and I needed to hear was because I was telling them, I'm a mess right now because I don't know what to do next. And they just said, have you paused and just forgiven all the people involved in this, the district personnel, the students? And I was just like, whoa, I haven't. I mean, and I do, but I haven't like really paused and been intentional about that because I've been going 1,000 miles per hour, freaking out about how my life is potentially going to be turned upside down. And so I so appreciated that from them because after that phone call, I did that. I just paused and, I prayed and I mean, I couldn't tell them necessarily, but I let the Lord know, like, I do forgive them. Like, I know that it's the sin, not the sinner, it's the sin that is, overtaking these people and having them make these decisions. And I fear they don't even know what they're doing, and I think of even, Jesus on the cross when he said, forgive them, Lord, they know not what they do. And that's actually something I've thought of often in my story is I don't even think they realize what they're doing in this. And so I just, in terms of forgiveness, I forgive them, between me and the Lord. And I mean, if one day I can have the opportunity to maybe tell them that in person, I will take it. That's definitely probably not something I'll have the chance to do anytime soon. But yeah, I think it's so important to keep your heart in a state of forgiveness so that you're not, just bitter and angry about it.
That's part of the reason why I moved out of California. Was like I was getting so upset at what they were doing to the kids in our schools, and I was finding my heart harden. And that's part of the reason why I always remember that these are just children, especially the kids that are questioning their gender. They're just children. And a lot of them are going to change, and some of them are going to grow up out of this. And I think that they're going to be really powerful. They're going to be like the Sauls to Pauls. They are going, the ones that they're going to look back on what they did to you. They're going to look back on how they were brainwashed by the other rainbow cult. I call it the rainbow cult. And these are, there's like the classic LGBTQ people, and I call them the people that are part of Gays Against Groomers and stuff like that. They just want to live their lives. And I may not agree with their lifestyle, but I don't agree with a lot of people's lifestyles, right?
Right.
They aren't out to get our children. They aren't out to get you fired because you don't necessarily go along with it or agree with it. This is a new generation. But I think once these kids switch, some of them are going to do that. They're going to grow out of this. They're going to be very powerful for fighting against this. I have another question for you, and it says, "Are you conservative, Jessica?" Stupid question, but still.
Yes, I consider myself conservative, most definitely.
Yeah. And I think that just goes along with being a Christian. I think that's what happened with me was I realized that my beliefs matched more with the conservative platform than the Christian platform. But I also think that conservatism is that's there is a separation between being a Christian and a conservative, because a conservative is basically someone who works to preserve the founding principles of this country. I think we've added a lot of other stuff to it, which is good, and the stuff that I believe in. Like let's not, two genders, for example, because usually conservatives believe in two genders. But also, I think that we need to go back to the roots of what a conservative is, and that's the founding principles of this country. And one of them is freedom of speech, freedom of religion, which is what you're being attacked on. And what is the so the angle for the lawsuit? I don't know if you can share this. Is that more about your freedom of speech or freedom of religion? What are they? What's the angle for that?
Yeah, I don't know a solid like game plan yet. In the last meeting that I had with the team, those are, of course, the two things that they were, bouncing back and forth on. I I want to say we're going to take it from both of those angles. But yeah, I don't know a solid game plan yet. The group I'm with actually super busy on a really big case involving one of the churches that was during COVID with the lockdown and everything.
It stayed open. Mm-hmm.
A huge case there. So I think here soon that's going to slow down and it's going to be go time on mine. But I will definitely keep you posted on all of that and how that plays out.
Well, we have very little time left, but I want to make sure we go into these. I want to address these two questions. What do you see as your next step? Are you going to go into another career or try and teach in a religious school?
It's so funny. I actually made a post on my story this morning because I get that question a lot. Like, what's next for you? What's next for you? And I'm just like, I don't know.
They've been putting her to work. She's been on Tucker Carlson. I've seen several news articles about you, and it's exhausting because, like, both her and I, we both did not get into this because we wanted to be like conservative commentators or activists. That's not really something that we asked for. It just kind of we got thrown into it because of our beliefs and because of what was happening in California public schools. So it's a lot to take in, and you also get a lot of hate when you start speaking up. I'm sure you've felt that as well. So so I think right now you're just getting the message out and surviving, right?
Yeah, at the moment I'm just kind of going along with how the story is continuing to get pushed out, and it's still getting out there. I have another pretty big talk show this Thursday, and so it's still it's just still really going, and so I'm just going along and really focusing on that, because really the core, I feel, of what I went through and these policies that are in place that should not be in place is the fact of the matter that there's not knowledge of them. Parents don't know. So how can they speak up and fight for this like I am if they don't even know that these policies are in place, these ed codes are in place? So it's really, really important that, not just my story, but knowledge of the state of education and the policies and the ed codes are known to parents, and that's happening through my story. So I'm just making myself available to just keep getting my story out. And I think when things slow down, I'll start to try and really figure out what's next. And I'm probably going to have to do that sooner than later, because it really did turn our life upside down. I mean, we think we can maybe afford like 2 more mortgages. And so, we're just like, all right, God, you're guiding us somewhere. And, even if it's out of our house, which would be so disheartening, like, he's still got this. And
sometimes you have to be pushed out too. You never know. Sometimes he'll shut doors to open others. But please support Jessica. Find her on Instagram. Let me put the banner up. And on her Instagram, you can see You can see you have a link tree where you have all kinds of resources, and you also have t-shirts that you sell. You have a link to your GiveSendGo. So please give her some support and some love, because this is not easy to have your entire career be taken from you because of your beliefs. And your beliefs are what most sane people in America believe, that there are only two genders and that we shouldn't hide from parents when a child is questioning or changing their gender. And I just want to end with this question. How can we help support other teachers who are also struggling through this type of situation as well? So what would you tell my audience on what they can do to support teachers that are having to face this crazy gender identity witch hunt that's happening right now?
Right. I've gotten so many messages with that question, and just from teachers who are needing support in very similar situations as I was. And I mean, I'm always going to advise, do make the hard decision, which is to stand up for what you know to be good, right, and true for all students, and for parental rights, and for, the future of society in our country. And it is not going along with and affirming these lies and confusion, of poor children. This is not how we best set them up for success and a bright future. And so I advise that, or teachers know their rights, stand up for them. And, if you have to make the hard choice, make the hard choice, and just, trust that you're going to be helping, conserve, America. We're the country that, I mean, used to be like what other countries looked to be like. And we're getting to a state where we're probably a laughing stock now. And so we've got to fight. We have to conserve, you know, who we really are at the core. And so,
And I
yeah,
think adults need to come and stand in the way from with what's going on with our children. The children can't defend themselves. They can't. These kids, trust me, we've been around them a lot. These kids are not very intelligent or wise. We have a lack of wisdom amongst our young people right now, and so we need wise adults to come and stand in the way from all of these activists that want to destroy our children. And I think a lot of them want the confirmation bias. Basically, they want to see in children their delusions. It
yeah,
makes them feel better about themselves. And I saw that a lot with the teachers that aren't really into the LGBTQ stuff. They're the ones that are pushing it on the kids because it makes them feel better about themselves, because that's all the sin problem, right? You feel better when you're in a group. And that's really bad right now. That's happening a lot in our schools. And it's really those teachers that should be getting fired, not you.
exactly.
And I just want to thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing your story, for being brave, for just being a fighter right now, which we need more of. I felt pretty alone when I first started speaking up about this. And so it's really nice for me to see other teachers joining in the fight. I know that when we first met each other, I mentioned to you about how we should start some sort of nonprofit as a support for teachers and parents on how to do this. And I want to ask my audience to keep us accountable to that. I
Yeah.
know that we're really busy and we have a lot going on, but we really should be coming up with even just basic resources for teachers on how to deal with all of this. And I just want to make that commitment to you, recommit that to you, that we should get together and do that maybe this summer when things slow down.
Yeah.
Hopefully they slow down. But thank you so much, Jessica, for joining us. Is there any last final thoughts you'd like to say on this video?
No, really just thank you. You've been a huge inspiration to me. I was following your account actually, before I went into this work trial. And so you don't even know, or didn't even know, but I was following you, and you were playing a huge role in inspiring me, to stand, for my faith and stand in my values. So thank you, because you were, really one of the first ones to stand up to the corruption, and I got to watch your story, and then it became my turn. And so thank you for being an inspiration to me.
Yeah, and I just want to tell everyone, we need every voice in this fight. It's not a competition. You do not have to be perfect, and that's the problem. I think we see a lot of really amazing conservative commentators and Christians that bring their voice out there, and they're just so streamlined and they have everything together, and it stops us from wanting to share and wanting to put our voice out there. But we really need every voice in this fight. And in fact, we need more people that are relatable, that are just like, I'm an everyday working American, and now I'm getting discriminated against and fired because I don't want to follow along with this, because we're seeing it in other professions as well. They really are going after people who do not want to follow along with all of this gender spectrum garbage and believe in only two genders. So I just want to encourage everyone to speak up like Jessica. And thank you, Jessica, for now you're an example to a future teacher as someone else who's watching your fight. So thank you so much for being with us on this live. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share it, support Jessica. I'm going to put her banner one more time where you can find her. She's on Instagram. That's the main place where she posts. And thank you so much for joining us. All right. God bless everyone.